All right, welcome to our session, A Day, a Week, a Life, Family Caregivers on the Front Line. I am joined here today by an amazing family caregiver, Melissa Schlemmer, who you will get to meet and understand just a glimpse, a glimmer of her life on the front line as a family caregiver. And we will frame up and talk to you a little bit about how family caregivers are structured across Medicaid, home and community-based service waivers. And I hope that from this session today, you can reflect back and consider how family caregivers might be structured in your own programs and take a look and possibly consider different ways to best support family caregivers. So let's dive in a little bit about who is a family caregiver. So when we're saying who is a family caregiver, this is really any relative who is supporting somebody with needs. So this can be a child with a disability, this can be an aging person who needs additional supports. Supports can be informal, they can be formal. It could just be you coming in and helping support your grandma once on the weekends and bringing her a meal. Or it could be very intense needs. So there's certainly a range, but this can be a spouse, this can be a parent, this can be a sibling, a brother, a sister, a grandparent, a cousin, an aunt, an uncle, any type of family member who is supporting another with their care needs. So tell us a little bit about, Melissa, your family caregiving arrangement.
I am Christopher's primary caregiver. I've been his primary caregiver ever since he was born. And not only do I do a lot of caregiving duties, my husband does a lot of caregiving duties. His siblings even help out in their small ways, sometimes and sometimes really big ways. Grandparents, we do have grandparents that are trained in some of Christopher's needs, in his tube feeding, in his transferring, and things like that. So I would have to say majority of our extended family, whether they know it or not, has performed some type of caregiving duties for our son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes the little things are really the big things. Just the other day, I was like, Dexter, I need wipes. I'm out. Yes. I am mid change.
Theodore knows if we are over here and Christopher does this noise, Theodore, who's 5, will run to the corner, grab a towel, and come and throw it at me because he knows Christopher's about to throw up.
Yeah.
And he's only 5.
Yeah, but he's yeah.
He knows.
But let's dive in a little bit to talk about, so if you may not consider yourself a family caregiver, so I'd ask you just to reflect on it. Was there ever a time that you've helped somebody else? Because the reality is about 1 in 5 Americans are a family caregiver or have been a family caregiver. And about half of family caregivers are facing some type of financial hardship because of needing to provide care instead of doing some type of paid work. And those difficulties continue to snowball because as we have an aging baby boomer population that needs more supports as well, there are more people needing to provide this family caregiving. And I think that it's a pretty massive impact. In fact, AARP did this study on just the dollars of unpaid care, and it's in the 600 billion plus of if this care was actually compensated and paid for. But there's this stigma around paying for family care for some reason. I don't know, but there is this idea that in our country, if you are a family caregiver, you shouldn't be paid. Like, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's your responsibility to take care of your own. And, I think that can be hard for a family who is trying to just get by and take care of their loved one and do what they need to do. Have you ever had anyone raise that or had come across that in your...
I have had people shocked and surprised when I do say that I am a paid parent of a minor. Mm-hmm. I think it surprises them that, he's my child, so I should just do it. I should just, but there's there's no way that we could make life work for our family without me being a paid parent of a minor.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think when we look at the, like, on its surface value, you know, I think in some ways you understand that shock, at least like before I was part of and had a child with disability. Mm-hmm. Like if you had never met a child with disability and someone just told you, oh, like we're paying the parent to take care of them, you'd be like, what?
Right.
What? We're doing what?
Yeah.
Like, does that? But then when you actually live it or see it or understand it, you're like, okay, no, this, you know, in terms of when we look at Medicaid services and supports for people with disabilities, this is something we as a country have said, like, no, we need to support people who have disabilities. That's like our commitment to each other. And we agree that this person needs those supports. And we also agree that we should provide those supports in an economically efficient way and with high quality. And so when you look at if there would be anyone that could do it with a better level of care,
right,
or, you know, and oftentimes in models, in self-directed models where parents can be, it is a much more cost-effective than an agency caregiver who is sending whoever,
right,
whenever, you know,
and
whether it's your
multiple different people. When it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. At least for our family, it doesn't. Our son needs consistency.
Yeah,
he needs somebody who knows him very well and who isn't just gonna leave.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, on its surface, you could say like, yeah, okay, I could see maybe the initial stigma, but like if you just take 1 second to look at the situation and really think about it, and I mean, the other impact that we're facing in this country is a shortage of caregivers. There aren't enough caregivers to provide the care that's needed, which is why more and more often family caregivers are needed, are relied on, are you know, filling in these gaps. And so I don't know, I mean, I know you've probably had times where you've needed to find a caregiver for Christopher, whether to give you just respite or, so what, you know, what is that's fairly easy, right? You just put and you just,
everybody wants the job, shockingly enough.
And they're trained and it's just, you know, like, you know.
But we've tried, we did have a PCA. She was young. We had to do all the training for her, and then she moved on. She moved on.
Don't you hate when the good ones move on?
It felt like
That's
a
so
breakup.
hard. Yeah.
I was heartbroken because for me, it's really, I have a very hard time not inviting you to be part of my family.
Yeah.
If you are caring for one of my most precious gifts, you're going to be part of my family. And then when you leave, you're going to break my heart.
Yeah. It's a very intimate role, you know? Mm-hmm. I mean.
And we have tried nursing agencies before, but I feel like with them, it's an all or nothing type of situation. Mm-hmm. It's full-time care when for families like mine, I don't want full-time care. I don't want somebody in my home 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, even 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I don't want that. Yeah. So finding somebody for us has been really difficult, even just finding somebody for the respite care. Yeah. It's not easy. And I have tried, but you just don't get very qualified applicants all the time. There's the reliability, there's the level of knowledge and experience. I know with COVID-19 came the like, are you vaccinated? Are you being safe? Are you like, well, their outside choices directly affect the health and safety of our child. Yeah. So that was extremely hard for us to allow anybody in our home during the pandemic. Yeah. I wanted to know where you were, what you were doing, who you were in contact with. Like, what other job are you really? Yeah. You're putting our son's health and life on the line if you're making all these choices outside and not disclosing them to us. And that was really difficult. Yeah. No, and I mean, this
caregiver shortage is there really isn't an end in sight to it right now. There is, it had started because of this, rapid growth of the aging population. I think the caregiving field, there's a lot to be said in terms of supporting that as a profession and being able to say, like, no, this is a worthy profession, and being able to support it with wages and benefits that, really signify that. I think there are also, like you had mentioned, in terms of there's a physical nature that can come with the job, with the lifting. And then there's this COVID-19, intensifying all of those things, because there are people who are extremely vulnerable to it and still are, even now.
I think that just really brought everything to light. But at the same time, not a whole lot was different before, and not a whole lot is different after.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, it's very true. Yeah, it was like this little weird gap. But yeah, because if you were vulnerable to COVID-19, you're typically medically vulnerable anyways to flu and other health things. And so I think that it just was very intensified. Yeah, no, absolutely. We did this video with you of a day in the life of Melissa Schlemmer, this family caregiver. And for those of you who might have watched Vanity Fair's Celebrity in a Days, that was really kind of the spark. And this Vanity Fair in a Day has these celebrity videos, but I'm telling you, the real celebrity when you watch this is gonna be Melissa Schlemmer.
Hi, my name is Melissa Schlemmer, and this is what I do in a day as a primary caregiver for my son who is disabled and medically complex. My alarm goes off at 6 a.m. every morning. And if I'm lucky, that is the first time I'm getting out of bed since the night before, but we all know that is never the case. Our son struggles with sleep in general, so oftentimes he's up a few times during the evening, occasionally needs one of us to lay with him, or he needs us to take his TLSO off, his brace for his scoliosis, or it's because he has a G-tube and a J-tube. And the G-tube, we empty his stomach contents 24 hours a day. So if that gets kinked, he wakes up gagging, retching, vomiting. And then his J-tube is where we feed him all of his nutrition, hydration, and medications. And if that gets kinked, his pump is going to beep an alarm and tell us, hey, there's no flow. The first thing I do when my alarm goes off is I head downstairs and I grab one of his medications. He's currently in a clinical drug trial, so he needs that medication at certain increments of time throughout the day. So that's the first med I draw up and I give to him, and then I head back downstairs to turn on my coffee pot. I try to enjoy a cup of coffee while checking my messages on social media, sending video messages to friends using an app on my phone. And if you are a caregiver or know a caregiver, the isolation and loneliness can be a thing. So staying connected to other friends has really helped my mental health, and just even virtually, it really goes a long way. So I enjoy my cup of coffee and I check my social media and check up on all of my friends. And then I start drawing up the rest of Christopher's morning medications. So I draw up the rest of his meds, and if he's still sleeping, I will just go administer them one at a time. Because he has a J-tube, he is volume sensitive, so I don't do all of his medication at once. And I typically will go give him a med and come back downstairs, do something else, and repeat until all of his medication is done. And if he's still sleeping, it's great. I can get a lot more things done. I can get his food bag ready for the day. He gets a combination of formula and Pedialyte to keep up on his electrolytes. So I'll finish doing that, and then I will wipe down everything that I need to wipe down. I can wipe down his mat, all of his equipment, everything that needs to be clean for him for the day gets wiped down while he's still sleeping. My alarm will go off at 8 o'clock typically, just to make sure all of the other medication that I did is done and over with. 8 o'clock My other son happens to get a medication at 8 o'clock because I have a younger son who is recently been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So not only do I have Christopher, who is dependent on me for all of his activities of daily living, and I now have my younger son who is going through some medical issues himself. After I get Christopher out of bed, I do have to transfer him out of bed. I lift him out of bed and I carry him downstairs where I have everything laid out to get him prepared for school. I have new extensions, a drain bag, the dressing that I put around his stoma, any skincare things that I need to do for him, a new brief, and clothes, his AFOs, everything that he needs to get out the door for school. So I get him all dressed and ready for school, and in the mix is usually breakfast for the other boys and things that I need to do for my other kids, make their lunches, get everybody's teeth brushed, etc. By 8:45, we are out the door and heading to school. I drop the other boys off first, and then Christopher heads to his school. I drop him off, and then I get to head home and have 2 hours and 45 minutes to myself. This is the time I can spend on hold with insurance companies, with the pharmacy, get all of my paperwork done that I need to do for the county, catch up on emails, do all of his MyChart messages or his portal messages that need to be handled with his specialist, make appointments, make sure we're up on our appointments. Also, I can organize all of his med supplies, do a little inventory, make sure we have everything that we need for the month, things like that. I can also get all of my household duties done during this time. It's not a lot of time and it ends up going really fast. Okay, so I grabbed Christopher from school at noon. He has a shortened school day just due to his diagnosis and his inability to handle a full day of school. But this is a great time to bring him to an appointment if I need to, go to a therapy appointment, or we just head home and get a lot of things done that we can get done together before the other boys come home from school. I like to get Christopher in his standing frame. If he hasn't done it at school, I'll put him in a standing frame for about an hour when he gets home. We do a lot of learning activities, a lot of modeling with his AAC device, a lot of books. Christopher could be read to from sun up to sundown. If that was an option, he would never complain about that. At 2 o'clock, my alarm will alarm again to give him his afternoon medications. So I will administer his afternoon medications. I'll make sure his food bag is filled up with formula. And I think it just goes without saying that during this entire day, I'm assessing him for seizures, low blood sugar, keeping him fresh and clean because he's not potty trained. There are just things that I do with him that are just automatic that I don't even realize that I am doing. Just because I've been his primary caregiver his whole life, I know his nuances. I know when he looks strange. I know when he's about to throw up. I can predict it. A certain noise that he makes, I know I need to run and grab a towel because he's about to throw up. There's just things that I know about him that I know it's hard to explain, but I know nobody else would know just because he and I know each other so well. So I'm doing all that throughout the day. But after the 2 o'clock medications, we do more activities, whatever we want to do. Home therapy, more bench sitting, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, all of that we get done before we have to grab everybody from school. So we pick everybody else up at school at 3:45 and head home. And this is the time I like to get Christopher in his robotic walking legs. He has these robotic legs that help him upright and they do a gait pattern so he can walk on a treadmill while I get dinner ready. I can see him, he is directly in my line of sight, so while I prepare dinner, he's getting his steps in. Okay, after dinner is a bit of chaos. It is a lot of ball throwing in the house, Legos, coloring, just a lot of activity with the whole entire family. We try to get outside if we can, take a walk around the block, and just enjoy time together. My alarm will go off again, one at 6 p.m. for my other son for his medication, and Christopher's at 7:30 for his medication. I will start drawing up his medication and set it down on the counter to wait, because then I can take him up to his shower and get him ready for bed. I'll get his brace shirt on, his pajamas, his extensions, everything that he needs to be ready for bed. So I'll administer all of his meds. He's ready for bed. His last one is at 8 p.m. That's his sleep medication to help him get to sleep and hopefully stay asleep. Once he's a bit drowsy, we carry him upstairs, get him in his bed, and get his nighttime feed bag ready. Hook him up to that, empty his drainage bag if that needs emptying, and just get him ready to be asleep for the evening. My alarm will go off one more time. It will go off at 10 p.m. to administer one last medication for him. And if I am smart, after I give him that medication, I myself will head off to bed, because I know I will be rinse, repeat, and doing everything all over again the next day.
I don't know if you know this,
I know.
but you're pretty amazing. Like, truly, that's
I know.
a lot.
After watching all of that, I keep thinking, like, that is far more than 40 hours a week. That is far more than anything I would ever do for a neurotypical peer of, a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Even look at my 5-year-old, who is far more independent than Christopher, and how much we really do in a day caring for Christopher.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to, we want to give him all the opportunities, and we want to make sure that he's thriving and learning and growing, and it's just a really, really rewarding job.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, the reality of it is that family caregivers do work hard and do a good job and are worthy of being paid for that work for their relatives and loved ones. And that especially when we are looking at and facing a caregiver shortage in our country, we should certainly turn to the option that can provide the highest quality of care with the best outcomes at the most cost-effective way to do that. I mean, it's quite silly to think, well, this could be, somebody could be abusing and using the system, which is true. That could happen and probably does happen. But that same abuse of the system can happen in other models, and you don't see anybody calling for not doing those models because, we can't have any more nursing homes because there was a case of a nursing home. And so I think that it's quite silly when you really look at the reality and the data of it and say, why aren't we doing this? I think the proof of concept has been proven, and here in the land of 10,000 lakes, they have recognized that parents of children with disabilities should be paid for the care that they provide, and are one of the few states that have done that even pre-pandemic. But so when we look at the kind of options of family caregivers, and mentioned this is typically only done through self-directed models where somebody can choose who they want to hire. And so if they want to hire a family member, they can do that. But then even in instances where there is self-direction available, there are very few that allow family caregivers, especially paid parents of minor children, the PPMC, like this idea. I think there are, only a handful that are known. Yeah. Minnesota, I think Colorado is one, but not many at all. However, with the pandemic, there was this real driven need for children with disabilities, and we've got to find a way to provide the care and support they need. And many states used this Appendix K flexibility through their Medicaid HCBS waivers to add this as an option. And so the question is, on May 11th, this magical date, May 11th, the pandemic, the public health emergency is deemed officially over, which starts this countdown clock of 6 months. States must unwind those flexibilities, roll them back, or decide to make them permanent. And so I think the question is, what states will do that and which will not? And so, I mean, I know you're in a state where you had it before, But what do you think it would be like if, for some reason, Minnesota was one of those states where in 6 months
They said it was
they
gone.
said it's going to be rolling back? Like, what would that?
I honestly can't even fathom what our family would do without the resources and the services that we have for Christopher. He only goes to school 9 to noon, so I have no idea where I'm going to send him after school. What sort of, is there a daycare? Is there any sort of services that I can put him in? There's obviously the caregiver shortage. I don't think I'd be able to hire somebody, and we'd have a major financial crisis for our family if I could no longer be a paid parent of a minor.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's the reality, that there will be a number of folks facing across the country, or even folks that maybe don't have that option now and are trying to make it work and shuffle through that. So if there's anything in terms of, if perhaps there is a Medicaid HCBS program manager watching this little tiny clip of this, what would you say for one that doesn't have paid parents of minor children, or who is planning to roll that?
Well, I would say when you're hiring for a position, when you're looking at somebody's qualifications, who are you hiring? Are you hiring somebody who still needs a lot of training, is very green, doesn't know anything, or are you going to hire the most qualified candidate? And in this situation, who's the most qualified candidate for the job? It's the parents. We know our kids the best. I want to provide the best care. And I feel like the majority of parents I know want to provide the best care for their child. They want to give them all the opportunities. They want to be there for those moments. They don't want to miss all of that. And I think it's offensive, like going back to what you said about fraud. And I think majority of us are never going to do anything to jeopardize losing what we have. We know this is what we want to be doing, and this is what our kids deserve. I would never, looking at my son, I would never do anything to take any of that away from him.
No, it is. It can be, I think, quite offensive, and I don't think it's intended to be so, but to have this idea that, if people are in charge of their own services and supports, and if they're hiring a family member, especially their own parent, then, And
I don't know what they think we're doing.
Well, we just showed them a video. Here's what we're doing. This is what's actually happening every day.
I'm not sitting around watching Netflix, and I'm caring for my child.
Who has care needs that have been assessed and determined. And I think just being smart about that. I think that it is like this just kind of silly stigma that exists for really no real reason other than it just does. And so figuring out ways to help hopefully broaden and educate and help people realize what it's actually like in the life of a family caregiver.
Unless you walk through our door, I mean, maybe you're peeking through our window and you can think you know what a family caregiver does, but unless you actually walk into our home and take a look and see what we really do, it's a lot.
It is. And there are, Minnesota, as we mentioned, is one of the states that has had it in previous to the pandemic. So it can be done. There are structures and there's oversight and review, and you have your case manager visit, and there's a check and balance on the system. It is not this.
It's not like I'm given a budget and I'm willy-nilly can just spend.
Go to the mall.
No. We're always, there's paperwork, there's approvals, denials, It's not that we can just do whatever we wish.
and there's review of the care that's needed. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, I think you said it best, like, who would you hire for any job? Any job that you're looking for, you should hire the best candidate. And that's a family caregiver.